So I've got 7 o'clock on the button here. We may as well get our meeting started. I'll call to order the Dartmouth Conservation Commission meeting on Tuesday, May 14, 2024. This meeting is being conducted remotely as a result of a March 29, 2023 order signed by Governor Healy that extended the hybrid remote meeting options to municipalities through March 31, 2025. This particular hearing is accessible to the public. There's a raise your hand feature at the bottom bar, and if everything else fails, just wave your hand and you will be. We have we have 6 commissioners in attendance, and we only needed 4 for a quorum. That being said, we'll start with our administrative matters. The first is the approval of minutes of April 9, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded motion. Roll call vote. Jim?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That motion passes unanimously. Next is to approve the field trip reports of April 23, 2024. A motion to that effect.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Jim?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. That motion passes unanimously. The final administrative matter is to receive the minutes of the April 2024 meeting.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion. Seconded. We have a second motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Jim?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. That motion passes unanimously. We're moving on now to our, our field trip reports. And the first field trip report is a request for certificate of compliance with DEP file 15-1985, RCC 2413. It's from Chris Petich for the construction of an addition to an existing dwelling within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland. It's on land described as map 166, lot 48. It's otherwise known as 28 Althea Avenue. Mark, what is the recommendation of staff?
Mr. Chairman, Jenna Silva, our conservation officer, is with us tonight, and she's going to be handling the first 3 field trip report recommendations.
Very good. Thank you. Jenna, what is the recommendation on this first request?
So we conducted a site visit on May 7th and observed debris within either the buffer zone or the vegetated, bordering vegetated wetland. So this must be removed and re-inspected by staff by May 23rd, 2024, prior to making any recommendations at the 28th hearing.
So you're recommending continue this until our Tuesday, May 28, 2024 meeting at 7 p.m.
Yeah, you cut out there for a second, but yeah, after that's been removed and re-inspected on the 23rd, then we would have to extend it to the 28th.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to extend this particular request for certificate of compliance until Tuesday, May 28, 2024 at 7 p.m.
Motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Jim?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That motion passes unanimously. Our next field trip report is for, again, for a certificate of compliance for DEP file 15-2541, SCC 2414. It's from John and Dolores Germant to remove a pre-existing residential structure and landscape. It's on land described as map 171, lot 23. It's otherwise known as 53 Lakewood Road. What is your recommendation, Jen, for this request?
My recommendation for the, you had said removed, it's for a renovation. But it's, a recommendation for a, complete certificate of compliance.
Okay, so we have a recommendation from staff. I have a motion to issue a complete certificate of compliance.
So
So
moved.
moved.
We have a seconded motion. We'll do a roll call vote. Jim,
Yes.
Liz,
yes,
Richard,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
and I'm a yes, that passes unanimously. We're moving on to the third, which is a request for determination of applicability, RDA 24-11 from Dartmouth. I'm sorry, I skipped one. I'm sorry. A determination of applicability, RDA 24-10 from Jonathan and Ariana Sleeger to install a 24-foot by 43-foot square foot in-ground pool within the 100-foot buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland on land described as map 66 lot 2-5, otherwise known as 1302 Reed Road.
And I would recommend a -3 determination with standard erosion control.
Very good. We have a recommendation. Do we have a motion for a -3 determination with standard erosion control?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote. Jim,
Yes.
Liz,
yes,
Richard,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. That motion passes unanimously. We're moving now to the fourth field trip report, excuse me. It's a request for determination of applicability, RDA 2411 from Dartmouth Natural Resources Trust, Inc., care of John Clark of UMass Dartmouth to conduct research on Spartina, well,
Alterniflora.
thank you. Recolonization regarding salt marsh elevation and sea level rise in the Nonquit salt marsh within both salt marsh and land, subject to flooding. It's on lands described as map 20 lot 55 and map 95 lot 5-1. It's on Smith Neck Road and Madaras Lane. Mark, what is the staff's recommendation on this request?
Well, a little feedback on this, just so you understand the context. As we know, salt marsh is sacrosanct under the Wetlands Protection Act and the bylaw, and you really can do very little within salt marshes. However, in this case, this is a scientific research project in the Nonquit salt marsh, which is certainly a degraded salt marsh due to elevation subsidence and sea level rise. And what UMass wants to do on land that's owned by DNRT, since they own a large portion of the Nonquit marsh, is to do some experimentation with elevation rise by placing wooden trays in the impacted salt marsh area to see if there's a relationship between elevation, which we think there is, between elevation, the tidal flow in and out of that marsh, and being able to restore that marsh. The project proposes to place, I believe, 8 quadrats of soil or sediment soil matrix and plant Spartina in that to see, and at various elevations to see what the response level is given the tidal flow in that particular salt marsh area. To that end, staff made a decision that this was not a terribly impacting project to the salt marsh, unlike several other types of projects that we do allow, Osprey Nest being one of them, Osprey Platforms being one of them. So we recommended to UMass Dartmouth, John Clark and his professors overseeing the research to file an RDA, and staff is prepared to recommend a -2. It is work in a resource area, not in buffer zone, but it will have no effect on the existing resource area whatsoever. And we would, to minimize or to eliminate effect, we would add 2 conditions to that -2, that all equipment and carrying of materials in and out is done by hand, no mechanized equipment. And It's not proposed in the proposal that I sent you, but just a condition to safeguard against placing these platforms on existing vegetated areas. They are proposing them on the devegetated subsided mudflats.
Okay, so we've got a recommendation from staff. I entertain a motion to issue a -2 determination, subject to 2 conditions. One, that all equipment and materials be brought in by hand, recognize the equipment being used, and secondly, that all platforms will not be over the existing plants, but rather on the mud flats.
So moved.
Second.
The second motion, we'll do a roll call vote. Jim,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. That motion passes unanimously. Good luck with the project. We're now starting, that concluded the field trip reports. We're now starting the public hearings. Does somebody, could they mute themselves? I'm getting a
And
lot-
Mr. Chairman, I believe it is the telephone 508-454-3806. We're getting feedback coming through your microphone and it's disrupting the public hearing. Please mute yourself.
So our first public hearing is a continued public hearing, DEP file 15-2731, NOI 24-16. It's on the notice of intent from David Vermette to construct a single-family dwelling, driveway, and utility connections with associated grading in the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland. The applicable regulation is 310 CMR 10.02, 10.55, and Section 2 of the bylaw. It's on land described as map 128, lot 14-10, otherwise known as 10 Avis Street. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion. We'll do a roll call vote. Jim,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. That motion passes unanimously. Is there someone here this evening on behalf of the applicant?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, for the record, Steve Giosa, representing David Vermette, the applicant on this particular project. If I may be allowed to share my screen at this time?
Please do.
Okay, it's not letting me yet.
Nope, I noticed that. Not much I noticed, but that I noticed.
I think the host needs to make him a co-host.
Something happened, but I don't know what.
That was me.
Oh, okay.
Pack TV, can you hear us? Can you make Stephen Giosa co-host? I meant DCTV. I was thinking Plymouth, sorry.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
Steve Giosa is trying to share a screen. He's having difficulty. Does he have to be co-hosted?
Let me double check on that. You can try now. If not, let
Okay.
me.
Yep, no,
I'll
it looks
give
like it's okay now.
Yep, I can see something coming through. Yep.
Okay,
I can see-
This is a single-family house lot located at the end of Avis Street. Avis Street was extended with a common driveway to serve 3 single-family homes. Originally noted as being the Poor Farm subdivision. It is a open space residential development. Avis Street is to the left side of the drawing as you come in on a common driveway. We go by the first 2 homes, which are finishing construction at this point in time. This would be the last single-family dwelling within this development. And you can see it's basically a square lot, about 27,000 square feet. Bordering vegetated wetland is mostly off the property and then nicks a little bit into the property here at the base on the east side of the land, north off the drawing to the right of the plan, and then angles down and away. And again, there's a bordering vegetated wetland down in this area. The 100-foot buffer zone extends about 3/4 of the way through the lot, right on this line here. And so you can see most of the dwelling and grading fall within the 100-foot buffer zone. The entirety of the driveway and the bulk of the utility systems fall outside of the buffer zone. Project would be served by municipal water and sewer. The water and sewer have already been brought up to a fire hydrant at this location just off the southwest corner of the property. And the force main for the low pressure force main system, again, located just off the property here. There are a series of easements that were created through the Poor Farm project, which would allow access and utilities to be brought to this site. Again, most of that work outside of the buffer zone. But because of the way this utility line was installed, there was a requirement for us to modify that easement line. So you'll see there's a little bit of an easement that's been created here to facilitate the extension of the sanitary line and the water line into the property. And then there'll be a easement that creates, again, a utility corridor to allow these utilities to run through to additional land, not part of the subdivision, but additional land owned by Mr. Vermette located to the north. And this would avoid us having to cut into Rockland Street if and when he develops these particular lots here. So we have had some preliminary review by DPW. They did provide some comments on some of the utility details and design. We've made those changes. They were waiting for us to have legal counsel create the requisite easements. This particular easement here, which is on the subject property, which facilitates the utility lines, and then a utility and access easement located on lot 2. That recording of easements actually occurred over the last couple of days, so we're providing that information to DPW, and we believe that will address the remainder of their comments. But as you can see, no work within a resource area. We do have a silt fence water line combination running along the down gradient edge of the property. General slope of the land is from the southwest to the northeast. Some of the land does drain more easterly. So again, we've wrapped the erosion control barrier around these lower gradient areas to protect the resource area during construction. And other than that, it's fairly straightforward. Single family home, the garage and the access to the garage outside the buffer zone, a sidewalk leading to the front door, small deck, and the rest of this will be lawn area or landscaped as part of the project. Relatively mild slopes. None of the slopes are proposed over a 3-to-1 gradient, so very stable upon completion. And we kept the house up a little bit to avoid water table impacts on the basement. So that's basically the proposal, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Steve. Mark, I'd like to hear staff's comments on this application.
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, just to remind the commission that this subdivision was the subject of quite a lengthy discussion in finishing a restoration area, which was finished well over a year ago, probably almost 2 years ago now. It's in place and it still appears to be functioning and establishing itself very well. Just as a reminder to commissioners who may remember that. The proposal that's before you is pretty consistent with the approvals that we've made on lots 2, immediately to the left of the subject lot, and lot 1, which is to the left of lot 2, and associated with that wetland replication area. So this is very consistent with what the commission has approved in the past. There is no work in the resource area. There is work in the buffer zone, as with the other parcels. So staff at this point is prepared to recommend a standard order of conditions. However, we're going to modify condition 21. I know Steve addressed the easements that were recently recorded. I want to modify condition 21, which is our condition that says needs to meet the approvals of other boards and commissions in the town. I would like to also add some language to satisfy the easement questions with regard to DPW, as the proposed easements, which are now existing easements as recorded, will service further development to the north and to the east of this particular lot. So again, standard order conditions with the modification of condition 21, and this recommendation is as per the plan dated April 17th, 2024.
Okay, I'm not sure I know what the I don't understand the modification, Mark. So we're modifying condition 21. What is it going to say?
I wish I had the language in front of me. I was involved in 3 enforcement cases today and I forgot to take it. Basically, it's just going to say be consistent with the DPW comments. The plan I sent to you has the DPW comments in red. It's a minor modification. It's just so that they're satisfied with the appropriate easements.
All right, I understand that. Does any commission?
I apologize for not having the language available.
I just want to make sure I understood what we're
Yeah.
modifying it. Does any commissioner have any question of either applicant or staff? I don't see any. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to be heard on this application? Again, I don't see anyone. So at this juncture, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote.
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. That motion, excuse me, passes unanimous. Commissioners, I'll now entertain a standard order, issuance of a standard order for conditions with a slight modification to condition 21, indicating that the the condition will be that the applicant satisfies DPW comments which were noted on the plan. All of this was noted on a plan submitted or dated April 17, 2024.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Jim,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Steve.
All right, very good. Thank you. Good night now.
Thank you,
Good
Steve.
We're moving on to our second public hearing. And it's a public hearing on DEP, it's a continued public hearing on DEP file 15-2720, NOI 24-6 on the notice of intent from Edward Borges, care of Russell Waldron of Applied Ecological Sciences to construct a gravel driveway that crosses a bordering vegetated wetland and inland bank and a single-family home within the 100-foot buffer zone to the bordering vegetated wetland. The applicable regulations are 310 CMR 1002, that's 10.02, 10.54, and 10.55 in section 2 of the bylaw. The land is described as map 65, lot 48. It's on Bergeron Lane. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Jim,
Yes.
Liz,
yes,
Richard,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. And I saw we have applicant here, or applicants, Russell Waldron's here, the applicant's professional. So you want to unmute yourself? The floor is yours.
Sure. Evening, everyone. Russ Waldron here for Bergeron Lane. So at the last meeting, I was sort of left with the impression that we had continued to the 28th. Per, I think it was the chair's recommendation, to give, our engineer time to get healthy and get the plans to Mark on time for the 28th. So in fact, I got Mark a set of plans, and I forget if it was in time for tonight's meeting or not, but he got back to me pretty quickly with some reviews and some additions to the plans. And so I immediately sent that over to our engineer and let him know that, hey, we have a new submittal deadline for the 28th. It's the 16th. Can you get it to me? Here's the list. Here's the items that Mark's requesting. And he did. And I shot them over to Mark. I forget if it was yesterday, the day before that. All the time assuming that we were going to be presenting the plan set on the 28th. So Mark has not had a chance to do any review. We were emailing back and forth today. And so still assuming that we were going to be heard on the 28th. At this point in time, I think at least my preference would be to let Mark, give Mark whatever time he needs to, do a full review, and then so that we all have it. And then come back on the 28th.
I appreciate that. I appreciate the narrative. Actually, given the fact that the revised plans were submitted when they were, we wouldn't be able to vote on it anyway tonight.
Right.
Enough
Yeah.
time. So, Mark, I don't see any reason not to continue this until May 28, 2024, but if you
Well,
see
that's the commission's discretion, and I don't have an issue with that, but I think that some clarification. This project was originally filed on February 2nd of 2024. That's more than 3 months ago. I've looked at a couple of sets of plans. I've been on site twice. I've made several comments and iterations. And we still are at a point where, unless the plans, which I haven't even looked at, the new submittals, one of which came in on Friday morning, another one I believe came in today or yesterday. So I haven't even looked at them. I haven't even forwarded them to your attention. In question of continuances, I checked my notes. I checked the minutes to which we approved this evening for April 9th. At the April 9th hearing, we continued this for 1 month to May 14th to give the applicant ample time to get their plans together. There was no discussion at the last meeting regarding this because we didn't have this on the docket. It was a 4-week continuance from the 9th. So I'm not sure where that confusion takes place. The plans that I have reviewed are inadequate in that they do not, they don't show several elements, and maybe the revised plans do, but just so you know, aside from the wetland crossing and a couple of a block showing a proposed house and a replication area, we don't know what the extent of site activities are going to be, yard areas of clearing. We don't have a footprint of what the yard area is going to be. We also don't have a location for a soil absorption system and a potential well. So there's still some elements that are missing. Now, I understand that you can't cite a septic system without doing perk tests, But we do perk tests are done long before notices of intent are filed. I realize that there's a crossing involved here, but we can work that out. The other question I had of significance is that they're proposing alteration of BVW of 4,408 square feet. But they're also proposing an additional 4,394 square feet of buffer zone disturbance. And they're proposing 4,452 square feet of replication. Now, I realize under the state act that would stand up, but given our bylaw and the premium that we put on buffer zones, I think that there should be a reconsideration of what is happening in terms of incorporating some buffer zone replication as we regulate that as a resource area, even though it's not a protectable resource area. So I think there's some adjustments that have to be made. And again, a lot of this goes back to my initial comments about extent of site area and extent of clearing. Staff is still in a bit of a fog as to what exactly is going to happen out there. The use is not the problem. The crossing is not the problem, although we still haven't seen a design for the vertical wall crossing in the wetland, which on the plan, the last plan I saw was to be designed by someone else. Well, that's fine, but we still have to see it. We have to know what it is. So I think there's still some information that we need, and hopefully in the plans that I received at the end of last week and this week, that these comments have been responded to. But I think that in my mind, and I don't want to speak for the commission, but 3 months on a single family residential use is a long time to be continuing these types of hearings. However, if the commission wants to, I would not have any problem if you want to continue it until May 28th. Given the fact that we do have plans in-house, I can't comment on them because I haven't looked at them, but we do have plans in-house, so I leave it to your discretion.
Mark, I appreciate those comments, and I do agree with you. It's been a long time since date of filing, a lot longer than we normally see for a single-family residence. My only concern with length of time in this particular case is that abutters who would normally have been given notice of the original meeting might now not even know what's going on. I certainly wouldn't require at this point a new advertisement, but I would require, I think, as a condition of the continuance, a re-notice to the abutters of the continuance, because it's been a long time. I don't know if there's any abutter in attendance who wants to be heard on this, but that would be my recommendation as a condition for the continuance.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
Is there anyone else that, any commissioner? Anyone in the audience? Okay, I'll entertain a motion. I didn't see anybody, so I'm not cutting anyone off that I'm aware of. I'll entertain a motion to continue this public hearing until May 28, 2024 at 7 p.m. with the condition that the applicant renotice the abutters of the continuation date of May 28, 2024 at 7 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Jim?
Yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. So this is continued until our meeting on May 28, 2024 at 7 p.m. And if you take a look, please, at what Mark's comments were, and if what you just submitted to him doesn't address those, you really got to get those in. I think it's Wednesday before the next public meeting, or we're not going to be able to vote. Just so you know.
Yeah, we've got all the comments. I think maybe not the well, because I haven't seen any decisions on where they would put a well. I'm assuming down the lowest part of the property, but I have to check with Ed on that.
All right. Well, I do think it's important because Mark's comments generally are, in my experience, quite pertinent to our ability to approve. So, insightful comments, they're right on the button usually. So,
Mr. Chairman, if I could comment, okay, this is very frustrating and we're hearing this from a lot of applicants. You know, we don't know where the well is going. You're applying for a single family home development on a lot with wetlands. You better know where the well is going. You better know where the septic system is going. If it has to move, you can amend the permit. But we need to have an idea of what's happening, where lines are going. A lot of this site is within our jurisdiction, whether it's buffer zones. And I can't make an honest assessment on incomplete plans. I mean, there needs to be something documented.
Mark, I'm totally in agreement with you, and the only other alternative, which is not, I'm sure, from an applicant standpoint, a good one, is to issue an order of conditions, but not include the location of the well, which would require a separate application when they decide they know where they want to put it. Okay, and that would just make it a little more miserable for an applicant to have to pay application fees twice, wait the length of time twice, but that would be their call. I agree with you. I can't vote positively if I don't know where things are. I'm not writing a blank check.
Well, yeah, that's what we're being asked.
So, I mean, that has to get done. I can't vote favorably unless that's carved out and in the subject of a separate application. That's the way I view it.
That is an option, certainly.
Not a good one, but it's an option.
It's an option, yeah.
All right. I hear you. Thank you. Moving on to number 3, it's a public hearing, DEP file 15-2728, NOI 24-14. It's on the notice of intent from Daniel Lane to restore portions of previously impacted bordering vegetated wetlands in the associated 100-foot buffer zone and to construct a single-family home and septic system and to landscape within a portion of the 100-foot buffer zone. The applicable regulations here are 310 CMR 10.02, excuse me, 10.55, and Section 2 of the bylaw. It's on land described as map 27, lot 26. It's otherwise known as 249 Slades Corner Road. Entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second,
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Jim,
Yes.
Liz,
yes,
Richard,
Yes.
Joe,
yes.
Nat,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. That motion passes unanimously. Is there someone here this evening for our applicant?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Sean Leach here, Northeast Engineers for Daniel Lane, representing the work on 249 Slades Corner Road.
Good
If I
evening.
could share my screen.
Yes, please.
Do you see it?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Sean.
Okay. So this is a lot that sits between Slades Farm Lane and Destruction Brook Recreational Area on Slades Farm Lane. It is surrounded by a bordering vegetated wetlands. There was at one time an existing house, barn, and garage on this lot. It has been removed by others. There was a barn here, there was an existing house, and there was another shed structure in here. They have been removed by some time ago by others. My client purchased the land last year and wishes to construct a single family home. There were 4 perk tests that were done in the front of the lot. Very good soils, all sand. Unfortunately, a very high water table, so everything has to be raised up to get out of the water table. This lot previously was subject to an enforcement letter. I don't know if it was an enforcement order regarding the clearing in the buffer zone by a previous owner. As my client has purchased this lot, he has purchased basically, I'll say the problem or the enforcement. So what we're proposing here is to build a single family home situated in the center of the lot, serviced by a traditional septic system with a pump, the septic system being outside the 100-foot buffer area. The driveway, which is already existing, the existing paved driveway already comes in. We're going to expand it a little to reach the house. There's an existing driveway to an existing building here. We're not touching that. That's remaining. But we do have to raise the house and the septic system in order to get out of the groundwater table and facilitate a walkout for this house. To do that, we have to grade and install utilities within the buffer zone. Again, the area, wetlands area goes around the lot itself, and it's within 30 feet over here. We have also proposed at the request of the agent to do not a wetlands replication, but a replication area of the buffer zone. And we propose to do plantings along here. Everything, historically, this was cleared up to the walls here. Even though the wetlands go over this wall, this is all vegetated. This is all vegetated to the east. This was, I'll say, vegetated by some invasive species at some time. It was all removed. The plan is to provide plantings that we've listed here and restore this buffer area in order to facilitate the construction of the house. So we're building a single family house here with a septic system. This again, Slade's Corner Road. We have received comments from the DPW regarding construction entrance, but it's a paved driveway, so we're just gonna have a chatter bar, keep mud off of Slade's Corner Road. I believe that because we've removed so many impervious areas and basically replacing it, that there's no net gain or net loss, depending how you want to look at it, of drainage. However, we'll address anything DPW requests, but it's a simple single family home that my client is fixing the problem that he inherited and just wishes to construct as soon as possible.
Thank you, Sean. Mark, I would be interested to hear staff's comments on this application.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in agreement with Sean. Sean and I go back a long way on this. I think 2 or 3 property owners, and unfortunately, Mr. Lane inherited a problem which Sean and I were well aware of for well over 8 years. But we really couldn't pin any kind of restoration, was the target was moving constantly. The plan you see in front of us is I approve of. It addresses the restoration need. It's a buffer zone restoration. It is not a wetland restoration. So staff is prepared to recommend a standard order of conditions with our standard restoration conditions. But because this is an enforcement restoration, I won't call it enforcement action because an enforcement order was never actually issued, but a letter of violation was. Typically, we would require the restoration to take place very quickly, sometimes prior to the actual site development. But in this case, given that the restoration is really in the area where the impacts took place, and it's a very appropriate location, it is very proximal to the home site. So instead of making this date certain, what I'd like to say, we typically say plantings are due by such and such a date in our standard condition, and we just fill in the date. I would like to say that plantings have to be in place and complete prior to the issuance of a temporary or permanent certificate of occupancy. Because I'm afraid that the construction of the house, if it comes after the restoration will be impacted and we will not gain the advantage that we're seeking with this. So I have no issue with, the house and the regrading taking place if they want to then implement the restoration area. And I think that, I will speak to the new building commissioner. He's very amenable to our issues and our needs. And I will tell him, just don't issue a certificate of compliance until we sign off on the restoration.
Okay, that makes some sense.
And this is all, this plan that you see in front of you is the plan that I'm basing the recommendation on. And that plan is dated March 22nd, 2024.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have any questions of either Mr. Leach or Mr. Garrett? I don't see any. Is there any-
Mr. Chairman, excuse me, I forgot to mention something. I'd also like to add another condition that no construction sedimentation be discharged off-site onto the road And the reason for that is DPW is concerned about it. And we have wetlands that surround this, this lot. And anything that discharges onto Slade's Corner Road is either gonna go east or west and end up in those wetlands. So I would like them to, I don't want to tell them how to do it. I can't tell them to put wattles in where it's not our necessarily our jurisdiction, but I would like a condition that off-site discharge be controlled from Slade's Corner Road and down gradient wetlands. I'll leave that to their devices.
Okay. Does any commissioner have a question of either Mr. Garrett or Mr. Leach? I don't see any. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to be heard on this application? I don't see any. That being the case, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Jim,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. That motion passes unanimously. Commissioners, I'll now entertain a motion for the issuance of a standard order of conditions with our standard restoration conditions. We will also make the following new conditions. One is that the plantings must be in place and complete prior to the issuance of a temporary certificate of occupancy or a permanent certificate of occupancy, whichever comes first, and that no construction sediment may be discharged into the roadway.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion on the floor. Roll call vote. Jim,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. That motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Sean.
You have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay.
We're moving on now to our fourth public hearing. And that's a public hearing on DEP file 15-2729 NOI 24-17. It's on the notice of intent from Roger Fortier for permission to dredge a proposed footprint of 59,970 square feet or 3,050 cubic yards of material from around existing docks and piles in land under the ocean and land containing shellfish. The applicable regulations 310 CMR 10.02, 10.25, and 10.34, as well as section 2 of the bylaws. It's on land described as map 112, lots 8 and 9. It's also known as the New Bedford Yacht Club at 208 Elm Street. I'm going to entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second.
The seconded motion, roll call vote. Joe,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. That motion passes unanimously. Mark, was this one of the matters where they were seeking a continuance?
Yes, I have been in discussions with New Bedford Yacht Club's engineer, CEC in Rainham. To be quite frank, they're a little inexperienced in doing dredging projects. They came in several months ago asking for some advice. I gave them some. Their plans are extremely incomplete. They have not segregated out improvement dredging from maintenance dredging, which has implications in permittability at the Conservation Commission level as well as state water quality level. They also have failed to indicate how they're going to dispose of this material. They assume it's going to go offshore, and it may very well go offshore, but there's no design detail as to how they're going to control sedimentation if they go off-site by loading it on a barge. If it's done incorrectly without the proper curtains, we don't know who's doing the work. We need to specify how it's done. We can't rely on the contractor to do it right. In addition, we're not totally sure that they're gonna be able to do it offshore. There's a possibility that they'll have to do a land-based dredge material management program, which would require dewatering prior to trucking the material off-site. Typically, on a site like this, they would use a portion of the parking lot and discharge the decanted water back into the harbor. That is not clean water. It's silty sedimented water. So there are details of the project that just have not been addressed. And I had a very frank discussion with the engineer yesterday. And I said, and I've worked on many dredging projects in Long Island Sound and in Massachusetts and in Maine. And if you can't answer these questions, I can't recommend a finding, except to deny for inadequate information. So the engineer spoke with his client, the yacht club, and they suggested withdrawing the application. I said, well, that's fine, you can do that. I said, but they're gonna come back with another application, they're gonna have to pay filing fees. You're free to do that if you want. I said, I believe that the commission would be willing to consider continuing this long-term into July or August to give them a chance to get their materials together appropriately and get the proper reviews and the proper designs in place. They had not addressed the Massachusetts Department of Marine Fisheries comments. We recently got the natural heritage comments, which really there was no issue with natural heritage. So they still have many, many questions to answer, more as to the how-to, as to whether they can or they can't. So I am in favor of recommending to the commission that we continue this to a July or August hearing. There's no pressure on the yacht club. They're not going to start dredging, just after the 4th of July. It's the boating season. They're not going to get to this until late fall, early winter at best, maybe late spring. So I think that continuing it to July or August would be prudent. We only have scheduled hearings up to July 23rd, so that's why I'm not necessarily supportive of a date certain yet, because we still have to vote on our summer to winter schedule, which I will be making up probably in about 2 or 3 weeks for your review and vote. But so my recommendation, in short, is to continue this to a later date in July or August.
Mark, I think we have to have a date certain if we're going to continue it, because anyone in the public that wants to come won't know what the other date is.
Well, we can have them renotice.
Well, okay, if we have this stipulation that we'll continue it to a date let's pick August, because we already have the July 23rd. That's the last meeting we can have in
It's the
July.
last meeting, and I don't know if that's enough time for them.
So I think we can say, I think we should safely say, well, they can pick a time, they can decide which of our 2 meetings in August they want to come to. Or if they want even more time, I'll give them September, but they have to renotice.
Well, could I make a suggestion? And I agree with that. Could I make a suggestion that we continue them to the 2nd meeting in August? And require them to renotice the abutters, prior to that meeting.
I would agree with that, and I'd also agree that if they are in August and they're still needing more time, prior to that 2nd meeting in August, they notify us of the request for yet another continuance. And frankly, at that point, which would only be their 2nd continuance, I would be willing to do so with the same stipulation that they notify the abutters, so the abutters know not to come on the 2nd Tuesday in August, but rather to come at the date that's going to be in the notice.
Yep.
But I understand the situation, and I agree with you, Mark. It seems like an awful lot of work. That's
It
certainly.
does, and I failed to mention that there's another project at the yacht club, which I was approached upon by another engineer. And I said, so how does this dovetail with the dredging project? And he said, what dredging project? And then I asked the dredging consultant, I said, how does this dovetail with the revetment, repair and, they're doing some additional stonework landward of the revetment to fortify it. And the guy said, never knew that was happening. I said, well, this is, that's the edge of the water and you're doing the dock area. So how do these dovetail? I mean, we need to know that. So they do have some legwork in front of them.
I agree. So, with that being said, I would ask, first of all, is there anyone in the audience that wants to be heard? And I don't see any, so I would entertain at this juncture a motion to continue this public hearing until the second public hearing in August, which is usually our fourth Tuesday, with the stipulation that the applicant resubmit notice to all the abutters of that once we have the actual date, number one, and number two, that the applicant also notify the Conservation Commission at least 7 days prior to that continued public hearing date, if they are ready to proceed, and if they are not, to then seek yet another continuance and re-notify the abutters.
So moved.
Second.
The second on the motion. Roll call vote. Jim,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. That motion passes unanimously. We're moving on to the fifth public hearing. Mark, file number for that?
We do not have a file number for that yet.
Okay,
And there was an email request to continue this to May 28th.
okay, we'll get to that. I have to still read it. We still have to
Okay.
do formalities here. We have a public hearing on a matter that does not yet have a DEP file number. It's NOI 24-19. It's on the notice of intent for ecological restoration from Thomas Hardman to eradicate existing Phragmites and any other invasive species within a bordering vegetated wetland. The 100-foot buffer zone and land subject to coastal storm flowage. The applicable CMRs are 310 CMR 10.02, 10.04, and 10.55, as well as Section 2 of the bylaws. It's on land described as map 113, lots 30 and 30-1. It's 5 and 15 High Street. I'll entertain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
the roll call vote. Jim,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Richard,
Mr. Chair, I have to recuse myself from this. I'm a resident of 5 High Street.
okay, you're recused. Joe,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. That motion passes unanimously. There was a request by applicant's professional for continuation until you said May 28th, Mark,
Yes.
to our May 28th, 2024 public hearing starting at 7 p.m. I'll entertain a motion to that respect.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion. Roll call vote. Jim,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. That motion passes unanimously. That brings us to our sixth and final public hearing for this evening. It's a public hearing on the request for an amended permit and conditions, DWP, B0006, that's AOOC 24-1 from Ronald Oliveira to modify the permitted single-family home and associated site grading and layout. That's section 2 of the bylaws at map 64 lot 30-6. It's otherwise known as 2 Serenity Lane. I'll obtain a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
Second.
With a seconded motion, roll call vote. Jim,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. That motion passes unanimously. Is there somebody here this evening on behalf of the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, no, there's not, and there's a reason for that. I found out yesterday midday that this hearing, which is under the bylaw and not under the act, that's why it's a DWPB 006 file number. So it's not for an order of conditions, but it is for a permit under the bylaw. It was not properly legally noticed in the newspaper. So I contacted the applicant's representative and I explained it to them. And they were comfortable with us moving it to the 28th. And I think the commission needs to continue it to the 28th based on the failure to have properly legally noticed this in a paper.
Thank you, Mark. So if anyone's in the audience that wanted to speak on this, we really can't because without proper notice, technically we can't even commence the public hearing. What we can do is continue the public hearing. So that proper notice is given in the meantime. And I would entertain a motion to continue this public hearing until May 28, 2024 at 7 p.m.
So moved.
Second,
A second motion, roll call vote. Jim?
yes.
Liz?
Yes.
Richard?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. That passes unanimously. Items for discussion. Mark? You've got them.
We got a few of them. Okay. The first one, I sent the commission members a copy of a draft CR for the Flag Swamp cranberry bogs. It came from DNRT, who owns the property, turning the CR over to Mass Audubon. And it's this has been a highly touted site for both development and conservation. Conservation wins out here with DNRT having secured the land and putting it under a CR for passive recreation. What DNRT needs from us, we are not partners in this except as, a regulator, should they need it. But what they do need from the Conservation Commission regardless is support for this to move this through the EOEEA process, if you will, for ratification. What that means is the members, if they're so inclined, need to come into the office. We have a municipal certification form, which you need to sign. We need wet signatures on it to move forward. So I'm asking you to, DNRT is asking through me to, vote to support the CR. And in doing so, you will come in and sign the municipal certification, which is sitting on my desk right now.
It seems to me that would be worthwhile for us to do. I'm just going to unfortunately be out of pocket tomorrow and Thursday due to my civic duties. If I get out early, and I won't know that till they release me, I'll come to town hall. Otherwise, I can't get there till Friday.
I have a similar challenge, except I am out of town through next Thursday, starting tomorrow. So I don't know if there's any timing considerations, and if so, I don't know if it's an option for me to abstain from this vote and let the rest of the commission vote, which should be sufficient if there was a.
We need 4 votes out of the 6 members sitting. That's what we need, so.
I can be in attendance. That's not an issue.
I'll
I can be-
definitely be willing to try, but I can't get there until Friday for sure.
I can come in.
Okay, there's 2.
I can make it.
There's 3.
I can make it.
There's 4. So if you don't need me by Friday, if you've already got your 4 mark, let me know. Otherwise, I'll come in Friday. And if
Okay.
it's some ridiculous thing, they let me out early, I'll be there.
Once I get 4, I'll let everybody know we're good to go. I will let Nick know that we're good to go and he can pick that up and then proceed. But I think we still need a vote for support.
Well, okay, I'll do that. So commissioners, I'll entertain a motion to vote to support the DNRT CR for Flag Swamp Road. It's to Mass Audubon, and wet signatures will be required, but that would be the vote.
So moved.
Second,
The second roll call vote, Jim,
Yes.
Liz,
yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Nat.
Just a question of procedure. If I vote yes, do I need to sign or do we still just need to
No,
vote
just-
the proposal?
You're voting
Okay.
tonight. Four
Yes,
would be enough, and I'm a yes. The four would be enough for the letter to show as a majority under our
Okay.
under the bylaws and under state statute.
yes.
Okay, good luck.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
We got the floor, Mark.
Okay, next one, this is quick. Okay, I have taken the revised bylaw through the arduous task of FinCom and Select Board. In doing so, I found that there was a typo in the copy of the warrant that was being passed around. I sent an email out to the commission on Wednesday, May 8th, and the typo falls within two definitions, the definition of coastal wetland and the definition of freshwater wetland. Somehow beyond me, the phrase or coastal storm flowage was added to each of those definitions. And those words invalidate each of those definitions as they're written. So the Board of Selectmen and the FinCom support the deletion of that language. And the commission, just as a formality, we need to approve those deletions. Going
Yeah.
from your town meeting.
I certainly think that's appropriate. Does any commissioner think it's not? So I'll entertain a motion to authorize the revision of the submitted warrant article to make the correction relative to the deletion in two definitions as Mark had outlined.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote. Jim,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Nat. Oh, you're muted, Nat.
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well, so that motion passes unanimously. Okay, Mark, we're on a roll.
I just had one item here. Did anybody have any commentary on the draft wetland regulation revisions? I got comments from Liz. Mike, you said you were gonna get me comments, but I know you were tied up, so not shocked that I didn't get them. We can move on, unless somebody else has something specific, we can move on to the next week, next meeting for this.
I would appreciate that, and it's my fault. Just put it this way, my civic duty takes 2 days a week out of my day till the end of June.
Got
So
it.
can just imagine what I'm doing, having a great time.
So if we can table this right now, if that's okay.
Please.
Mike, what's the matter? You have a grand jury?
You're not supposed to say that.
Better you.
That's a rather cynical laugh there, Richard. I don't know why.
Oh, no. Forget I said anything.
The last discussion item, and I do have to tell you, since we posted this agenda, we've gotten several enforcement issues that we have to discuss real quickly. So I'll try to get through this quickly.
Well, you forgot when you said revised conditions language. What is that?
Okay, that's where I'm going.
Okay.
We dealt with this a little bit early on with the Vermet discussion and the 249 Slades Corner Road discussion. DPW makes comments which are many times plan altering. And so we get in a bind what's the plan of record? Do we hold a hearing up or not because of DPW comments, which may or may not be in jurisdiction, but will affect the final plan? So anyway, that's the issue. there's another issue in spending a lot of time with the revisions of the bylaw and the regulations. I noticed that in our current language, we are supposed to stipulate what conditions are assigned to which jurisdiction. So I sent, as part of the email with the language deletion that we just voted on, I sent a section of 2 conditions as part of special condition 20, and also a header. The comments were in red, in which I said special conditions associated with both the Wetland Protection Act and the local Dartmouth Wetland Protection Bylaw. Okay, and then we go into our 20 standard conditions. In condition 20B, we had a condition that reads, all construction shall be segregated from downgrading jurisdictional resources with properly installed and maintained staked and entrenched hay bales or wattles and silt fence. In silt fence. I've modified. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, okay, that's it with silt fence. I modified that condition to read on-site construction and earthwork, I've added earthwork, shall be segregated from all downgradient jurisdictional wetland resources or stormwater catchments. And we get at this with DPW all the time. If there are construction sites that have orders of conditions, silt discharges down. That was one of my motivations for adding that condition into Slade's Corner Road tonight. And then continue with the properly maintained and installed hay bales, entrenched hay bales, or swaddles and silt fence. I think they're minor modifications. I think it cleans up our standard conditions and it addresses these little loopholes we get into with DPW. And that typically occurs pretty much near the end of the review period. So I would be appreciative if we could make these modifications. It would save me lengthy, duplicative discussions.
I think they make great sense, Mark, particularly because, you know, you already know they're gonna come up again and again and again if you don't.
Right. So, and I ran this by Paul Duarte, the senior engineer at DPW. He's totally comfortable with it.
Okay.
Okay, so if I could get a vote for that revision, that'd be great.
Any questions from any commissioners? I don't see any, so I'll entertain a motion to authorize Mark to make the amendment to our conditions as he described this evening.
So moved.
Second.
We have a seconded motion, roll call vote. Jim,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Nat,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well, so that passes unanimously.
Okay, I've got 5 enforcement issues which I have to go through, and basically this has taken up most of my week so far. So I'm a little bit scatterbrained here, but if I could take them in a row here. First one is a few weeks back, we issued an order of conditions for a buffer zone restoration on a residential lot in off of Chase Road. It was the one with it was Mr. Baptista. We got a plan that was insufficient and we had to continue. They finally did a plan that was approvable by us and we approved it. Board of Health, well, Public Health, Chris Michaud, the director, commented to Mr. Baptista that because the previous owners were conducting non-conforming, non-residential uses on the site, and Mr. Baptista wanting to change this to a single-family lot, it fell within their the land redevelopment regulations for change of use, which required them to conduct an environmental site assessment due to the types of materials that were on that site. And we all suspected that there was going to be a problem. And that problem has absolutely mushroomed. They have conducted a phase 1 and a phase 2 ESA, and they are getting hits of arsenic and metals all over the place. And how this affects us is they may need to work in areas of our jurisdiction as part of the cleanup, which will complicate this to no end. We stipulated that we had to have their restoration done by mid-June, and that's really impractical at this point, because they're gonna be poking holes, test pits, monitoring wells, sampling. They're not gonna be anywhere near ready to do planting, and those plantings will probably get impacted, so it's an order of conditions that has a 3-year life, so I think once they get a handle on what they need to do, which we don't know, I met with their consultant on Friday morning at his office and looked at all the data, and there are some issues out there. I think we just have to sit tight on this one and not push the envelope until we get a sense of the cleanup. I think Chris is going to get town council involved in this. So this has the possibilities of really blowing up into something that nobody wants to deal with, but nonetheless has to be dealt with. So that's kind of an FYI for you. If you're going around and you're seeing them doing a lot of stuff and not planting the buffer zone, that's why they really can't. It would be imprudent at this point. So we're going to try to stay on top of it. Chris and I are working together along with the consultant and along with the owner, and we'll see where we go with this. So that's just an FYI for you folks moving ahead. We are on top of it and we are monitoring what's going on out there. The second item is yesterday afternoon, about 2 o'clock, I got called. Somebody had decided to take their 4-wheel drive vehicle out onto Round Hill Beach, the public beach, then blow it over a coastal dune and set up a minor encampment behind the dune. To make the story short, I was out there with Tim Lancaster of Parks and Recreation. They own the land. There were 2 Dartmouth police officers and a Commonwealth of Massachusetts environmental police officer. And so we assessed the situation, and there are many ways we can go with this, but I think what everybody came up with as a reasonable conclusion was that Jenna will assist Parks and Rec in a dune restoration program in which I think we lost Mike. In which we will replant the dune, regrade the dune, and all costs incurred by the town will be part of the summons that the police department is issuing to the violators, that the town will be compensated for any labor and materials going forward on that. So that's just a quick FYI on that.
Mark,
yes.
sorry, just really quick on that one. And I may have missed it in your comment here or in your email, but are the violators known or are they not yet determined?
I do not have their names yet. The police do. They're writing a police report. And, you know, as the police are, can I have their names? Oh, it'll be in the report. Well, how do I get them?
Okay. Yeah, I don't need the names. It wasn't clear to me if they were known.
It was a young couple. I don't think that they could afford the fines that could be levied on them, and I don't know that that would gain us any satisfaction in reestablishing the natural resource for what it is, both for storm damage protection, flood protection, and nesting habitat. So I think this is the most prudent way to go, and everybody was in agreement because, you know, you go to court and you plead, I can't afford it. The court will just throw the whole thing out and nothing will get done. So I think we have, everybody's in agreement, and I think it'll work out. So that's how we're gonna move forward on it.
Mark, if I could, please, you mentioned all costs. Does that include legal fees also?
I don't know I don't know that there are any legal fees yet.
Well, there will be. Also, I believe if you speak to them, I believe if they're on a vehicle, they have insurance to cover this.
Well, and I'm leaving that to the police, you know, they're head manning the violation. I sent you an email with an attachment, which is what I hope that the police will incorporate into the summons. How the town gets recompensed for legal action, that's their business. I'm not seeking legal action at this point. I'm seeking just pay for the plants, pay for the labor, pay for the monitoring, and you know, that'll be a few $1,000s when it's all said and done. Let's just get it done.
Okay.
Right, it's on a very fragile area, you know, so I want the area taken care of. I mean, that's my biggest worry. Dollars and cents from our end is not a big chunk of this. There may be other legal fees that they're gonna have to deal with, and that's for them, law enforcement and the environmental police.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? 98 McCabe Street, this is a site that keeps coming up. I don't quite know how it was ever approved, but it was. There is an order of conditions. There was a complaint issued to the EPA about the owners operating a construction business, which they do operate. They admit to it, operating it. They've got big trucks. They were power washing their trucks in their construction driveway, which is on the east side of the house, and it was discharging directly into a tributary of the Buttonwood Brook without any treatment, without any containment, blah, 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 blah. They were in violation of federal, state, and local laws. We wrote them a letter, we gave them a cease and desist. There's nothing we can really do to you know, to take care of what they did. I mean, that's all kind of washed downstream now, and there was no real evidence of impact. However, they admitted that, yeah, the water runs right into the brook. We said, you can't do that anymore. However, I copied the zoning agent, and the zoning agent is of the belief that they cannot operate that business there. So more to come on that, but we're kind of on top of that. We have a possible violation off of Nathan Drive. We had issued an order of conditions for a single family home probably 3-4 years ago. The home was built in accordance with the plans. We have not issued a certificate of compliance because one has not been asked for yet. However, they seem to be, you know, spreading their wings a little bit beyond what was permitted, so we're trying to take care of that in short order. The last enforcement order is up at 1395 North Hicksville Road. This is the parcel that's adjacent to the old Levesque property. This parcel had been utilized for years for various auto disposal, bunch of debris disposal. Now it is being used. There are animals out there and there's debris. We were asked to do a wetland A1. Jenna went out and the wetlands were very easy to identify. It was the edge of the mess. So we issued a violation notice to them indicating that they needed to get a disturbed site wetland delineation and that we were not going to issue any kind of finding until we see some restoration and restitution out there. And that's all I got for tonight.
I have a quick question, unrelated to the enforcement orders, but Mark, I believe you saw, I did send a formal letter asking for another term on the commission to Sean. I didn't see a response. I don't know if I should expect one or if there's any additional steps from me.
I can contact Melanie Perry, or you can contact her. They typically don't tell me when they're doing the hearings.
Okay.
And they don't typically tell me that they've received anything.
Okay.
Okay, so.
I'll send a follow-up email just to ask them to confirm receipt of
Yeah,
it.
just copy me and that, you know, if they reply to all, then I'll know what's going on.
Okay.
Yep. Without a chair, I don't know what we're gonna do. I'm gonna assign a chair. Nat's smiling at me, so.
Motion to adjourn, or actually, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Yes, so moved.
Move.
Second,
Okay.
I'd just like to
Motion
compli-
seconded.
I'd just like
Yes,
to
motion second.
compliment Mark and Jenna on hard work and in very difficult situations. You're doing a great job.
Yeah, I'll ditto that.
agreed.
Thank you much. We appreciate it.
Nat, are you gonna call a roll call on the
I am.
adjournment?
Yeah, we'll start with you, Richard.
Why not? Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. That's 5 yeses. Motion to adjourn is approved.